It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. So, did you get out and vote on Tuesday? Did you cast the ballot? Because it's as close as we thought it was going to be. Yeah? I've had people say, I thought it was going to be. No, it's close. Going to come down to Pennsylvania as we said it was going to. It's going to come down to counting the mail-in ballots as we said it was going to. And we said, look, the Republicans are going to say, we won. Look at election night. Everything that we said was going to happen has happened. It's now all over except counting the votes. And before everyone loses their mind, their hair gets set on fire, that's where we are. Now, and I've said this numerous times on the program, there's nothing new about what I'm going to say. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, it will be because the Teamsters leader, Sean O'Brien, failed to endorse in this election, failed to mobilize the membership to get Kamala Harris over the top, which will be really tragic for the Teamsters Union because they've invested so much time, energy, resource into organizing Amazon. It will be really sad when Elon Musk and Donald Trump get into power and quash all of that. And the failure to endorse, I believe, will be central if Trump is to pull out Pennsylvania. We don't know. It's close. Just like it was 4 years ago. And what that tells me is we're a very divided country. It tells me that we got problems. And no solutions yet. This is where sitting in this chair going, what does the future look like? Republicans are going to win the Senate. That's going to happen. Potentially, close in the House. What does governance look like? And is there a way to do the kind of things that we've talked about? Clearly, there will be no consensus. My hope had been, and I had said this before, my hope, reality notwithstanding, my hope would have been that we would have gone to the polls collectively as a country and made a decision. And it would have been a clear-cut decision, resounding victory for one side or the other, saying this is the pathway we're taking. This is it. That hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen because we are this divided. And given the current media structure, given the dominance of right-wing media, because if you talk to people individually and you explain what Project 2025 is, you explain what conservative policies are and what they have done over the years, people repel those pretty quickly. But the right-wing media is so powerful and reaches into so many parts of our lives that they've won the messaging war. They've won the misinformation war. In the old days, we had 3 news channels. That was it. Now people are getting their news from, conspiracy corners. And I had this moment on election day. We're a contractor because, we're doing some work around the house to get ready for my wife's return. I had this conversation with a contractor about, who'd you vote for? And we went down this road and he just kept laying out all of these things that I didn't need to have him tell me where he got his news from. I already knew by the conspiracy theory that he kept throwing out and the worldview that he kept spewing out, as if there's a world that he lives in separate from the rest of us. And I've run into this numerous times over the years where, we live in the same neighborhood. Our kids go basically to the same schools. We shop in the same stores. We walk on the same streets, but in our heads, very different worlds, very different bits of information. And that's frightening Because I've always said, I believe we all want similar things. We all want, good jobs. We want safe neighborhoods. We want good schools for our kids. We want security. We want all of these things that tie us together. And yet the information that we're fed, very different depending on where you're getting your sources. And then this absolute hatred of the other side. And I guess I'm different. I wanted to stand and talk to this guy all day. I would have stood all day and talked to him just to pick his brain, just to find out where if there is common ground. But that's not how it works, because eventually you get to a point where the thought process is indefensible. When you get past the that's not accurate, and them going, well, yeah, it is. Well, prove it. Well, I heard. Well, show me the facts. Show me the documents. Show me the information, that the sources of the research that you have done, the extensive research. Show me the citations. And it generally comes back down to the right-wing cesspool of the OANs, the Newsmaxes, the right-wing think tanks that create their own alternative realities. This is what's destroying this country. We've factioned off, and discussion, commonality, has been the victim. Now, we, again, don't know who's going to win the White House. We don't know which way that goes. But as we said from the beginning, very common sense point of view, half the country is going to be upset. And do you have someone who tries to reach out to them and try and bring them in? And will they repel that? And my position is very clear, and it has not changed. The winner in all of this is not you and me. The winner is not the red hats or the blue hats. The winner is not the working people who are going to be misserved by bad governance. It's going to be the billionaire class. It's going to be corporate America. It's going to be the wildly wealthy, because this is the system they want. They want chaos. They want division. They want us at each other's throats. And look, ultimately, whichever side wins, the other side will begin organizing against immediately. And that's how our system is supposed to work. But I hope part of that resistance, that organizing, I hope part of that is outreach to others. To talk about how, in a common ground kind of way, we find a way forward to ensure that there is commonality among us. To where if the other side does win, it's not the end of civilization. I don't know if that's possible. And look, we don't know what the results are yet, and probably won't for a couple of days. But I guess it's aspirational. I guess it's one of those things that I hope for. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Tell me what you think. Gonna take a quick break. When we come back, my good friend David Yankovich is going to be here, share some thoughts.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, as we've all known, there is no winner yet. And I keep saying, look, Pennsylvania is going to be the key. The Keystone State will be the key. We'll see how this goes. And as I said at the beginning, if Pennsylvania goes to Trump, it's going to be Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters, who I blame. Pure and simple, that easy. We're here to share some thoughts on, what this campaign's look like from a digital media strategy, and maybe where we are in this moment. I've asked my good friend David Yankovich to come share some thoughts, digital media guru and strategist. David, thanks for taking time for us.
It's good to be back, Rick. Good to be back.
So clearly we didn't, nothing surprising yet, right?
No, nothing surprising. I mean, maybe it's closer than a lot of people out there think it was going to be. But if you've been, paying attention to this country for the past 10 years, then you knew that this is going to be really close. So,
yeah. No, I mean, we're divided, and sadly so. I mean, it's one of those things where you go, how someone votes for Donald Trump enthusiastically, given the fact that he's, really a deplorable, I said to one guy, I go, he's the kind of guy that if he wasn't Donald Trump, you would not let him near your house, and you wouldn't.
Or your daughter.
No, most certainly not your daughter. But it's just this weird disconnect, and it's interesting to see where we are.
I think one of the most, as everybody's watching the results, and I've been around so many people tonight, the one thing that always keeps coming up is, how are people voting for this guy? Like if you have a daughter, or if women, how are women vote? And that's the thing. It's that's really the question. Whenever people are looking at the numbers and results, it's how? But it's, they live in a different media than we do. They're not getting the real world.
And this is where I'm glad you brought that up, because, on election day, I had a contractor come over to do some work. And, immediately we started talking about the election, and he's like, who'd you vote for? And I said, I voted for Harris. So we got into this back and forth, and it's this alternative world that he gets his information from. I said, where do you find your facts? And it comes down to the world that the right wing has created: the OANs, the Newsmaxes, the Joe Rogans, the Alex Jones, all of this opinion, all of this grievance media that isn't really based in reality, but sure knows how to grab people's attention. In fact, made up stuff right on the scene about. It's just it's maddening almost.
The most maddening thing to me, you and I have been friends for a lot of years. I've been on your show a lot of times. I mean, from running for Congress, the resistance stuff, candidates, campaigns, and everything else. And I've been in politics for 8 years now, 9 years almost. And when I look at the votes in Pennsylvania, and I look at who the audience is that we're losing, it really infuriates me that shows like yours aren't getting the credit that they deserve and haven't been. That is a huge reason why we're having a problem with working class men and or especially working class white men, I should say. I mean, suburban areas. Pennsylvania should not be this close. That's a union state. And I know I'm preaching to the choir for you. And this isn't me shouting you out. I'm legitimately saying whatever happens in this election, I don't know if we're going to have the results tonight or tomorrow or whatever's going to happen, but we have to get back to talking to real people. I mean, that's obvious with the numbers that we're seeing, that we don't have people like you on the Democratic side, doing that. And that's why Walz was so popular. He came out, he was that guy, that everybody relates to. And, that we need that. And I think we've lost a lot of it. Whatever happens, we're going to have to fix that.
Ultimately, I know a lot of people who voted for Trump, and I do. And a lot of them resort to how liberals felt about George W. Bush, the anybody but Bush kind of mindset. Well, their mindset is anybody but a Democrat. So a lot of Trump's sins are forgiven because, they've been trained that the Democrats are evil and it doesn't matter who the replacement is. And that's the kind of vibe I got this time around, that the Republican machine, the media machine, did a really good job of demonizing Harris, demonizing Walz, demonizing Democrats up and down the ticket, that we're that divided. And look, I go back to this contractor that I was talking to. I said, look, the reality is you and I are not that far. We're not living that far of different lives. How is it we're on polar opposite political ends of the spectrum when we live in the same basic space? And it comes back down to the information we choose to fill our heads with.
Yeah. I mean, I can give you the example of my dad. He made $55,000 a year. He worked for a water distribution, warehouse. And he'd wake up in the morning, he'd turn on the TV, be all conservative. That's all he'd listen to. He'd check his emails, and his friends would send him chain letters about Obama being a Muslim
Yeah.
or whatever at that time. And then he'd go to work and he'd drive and he'd listen to talk radio, and WNIR in Akron turned into Republican radio over the last, 20 years. Then he gets to work and he talks to all of his friends about it all day. Then he drives home, does the same thing, or goes to the bar and talks to the guys there. It's a whole different world. They're getting a whole different universe of media and that stuff. And what's really funny, Rick, is the same people that told us don't trust the internet growing up are the same people who now have done this. Who fall for everything. It's like, I literally grew up, don't trust anything on the internet. Look what happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's the conspiracy this person brought up about Harris working at McDonald's. She's like, she never worked at McDonald's. And I'm going, I don't know if she did or if she didn't. She said she did. Nobody's proven she hasn't. Oh, but there's a picture. She put out a picture. I'm going, she didn't put out that picture. I don't know where the picture came from, but she didn't do it. That you can prove, and it's just this whole conspiracy that now comes around this idea that they can't prove or disprove that she worked at McDonald's. Look, I worked at a Wendy's. It's not there anymore. The owner that owned that Wendy's doesn't exist anymore. Not that I'm proud of the fact that I worked at a Wendy's, but if I said that, somebody would go, "Well, no, you didn't." I can't prove I did. It's a weird kind of argument to be fighting over.
You want to talk about conspiracy? 2016, it was all about Russia, and Trump made Russia,
Yeah.
and everything else. Today was definitive proof, like outside influence. How many bomb threats? What was it, 57 or 47 in Georgia today?
Yeah.
Like you cannot say ever again that Russia's not in. Like that should be the first freaking question that Trump gets asked is, what are you going to do to retaliate against Russia for calling in 60 bomb threats or however many it was? Or if it's calling what? Like that is, I mean, that's a war crime. I mean, if you I know it's a Geneva Convention. If you go back and look,
it wasn't Putin. It was just some mischief makers in Russia.
Yeah, because anybody in Russia can do anything without him knowing it.
No, and this is where the justification comes in. And again, I come back to all of this division, all of this pitting each other against each other doesn't help us. It's not about making our lives better. And this has been my problem for a very long time with our politic, because I truly believe government is how we make people's lives better. I think good policy makes people's lives better, as Biden has done. I look at the infrastructure bill. Had Trump passed an infrastructure bill during his 4 years, he would have been unbeatable. The next term.
It was infrastructure week for 4 years, but there
were photo ops every week. Yes.
Yeah.
But I come back to the policies that aren't being talked about or aren't being done because we're talking about, did Kamala Harris work at a McDonald's 30 years ago? And it's that kind of mismessaging, that kind of distraction, that kind of divide and conquer that's been killing the working class of this country for far too long.
Yeah, I think, one thing right now that is one of our biggest issues is that we don't understand how social media works. And I know I bring this up sometimes, but one thing that I'll give Trump credit for is he knows how to create a soundbite. He knows how to create a headline, make things go viral and do that stuff. And I feel like on our side, we're trying, that's why we get inundated by this stuff, right? Like the combo of, at McDonald's stuff and everything else. It's because, we can't get the message out the same way. The average reader on social media has a 5th grade reading level. That's not me making fun of anybody. That's a fact. The average person only spends one sentence to read through a post. That's it. You get one sentence anymore. It used to be a whole story. Then it was a paragraph or a headline. Now you get a sentence. So, I mean, that's where we are.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. And look, I don't know who's going to win, but ultimately you're going to have a divided government, and this is where the frustration comes in, because again, we're not going to get anything done for 4 years, and that again plays into the right-wing frame of broken government. These are people who don't believe in government. These are people who have broken government. And if it doesn't get anything done, the message still is it's broken and it doesn't work. Let the billionaires do it. And that's my great fear out of this. The winner, no matter who wins this election, are going to be the very well-to-do. The Elon Musks, the Bezoses, they're going to be the ones who are the winners.
I mean, that's my fundamental belief. I mean, the reason why I'm a Democrat is because I believe that in a democracy, someone has to protect the people from corporations. That's the government's responsibility. They're supposed to help people. They're supposed to make sure corporations don't become too big and powerful. Like that's where I see the Democratic Party, or in a democracy, that's where the government should be. I mean, and we're turning into an autocracy, and that's what with Elon Musk and with everything else. And that's the thing. If you have focus groups and you actually talk to people and educate them, they get it. But when it comes down to the vote and things like that, like the average person only reads or listens to 3 minutes of political content per month. So that's as much information as we get to the average voter that is out there, Republican or Democrat.
No, it's definitely going to be an interesting couple of days here as we count the votes and move in the direction that sadly we're heading. And my hope for this election was that it was going to be a decisive victory one way or the other. But it's looking more and more like this is going to be a nail biter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. There's no surprises there. I mean, the whole campaign, I mean, Kamala especially, has been first off running to win, but also telling everybody, this is going to come down to the wire. Everybody, yesterday they posted a list out of, what to expect on election day, and I mean, they were ready for this. I don't think that this was unexpected for them. I think for the American public, it's unexpected, but for the campaigns and for everybody who's been doing the polling and paying attention to this stuff like you and me do, I think that everybody really expects this to come down to the wire, which sucks because it shouldn't. I mean, Trump should have 1% of the vote, but here we are.
Yeah, no, I guess it comes down to this is who we are. This is us telling us who we are. This is us as a country, and not the individual us. Because I get when I say we as a collective, I get someone well, not me. I'm better than all that. No, as a country, we have decided the majority. Unfortunately, some really bad stuff. I mean, I look at Ohio. What is wrong with Ohio?
I don't know. I'll get to Ohio, but I see myself more as an optimist. We just haven't reached those people yet to be able to convince them.
Okay.
But Ohio, it's tough. I mean, that's my home state, and I watched Barberton go red. 2 elections ago, completely red. 75-year stronghold, or 70 years, never had gone any Republicans ever, and it's happening. I mean, Northeast Ohio, there's a lot more rural areas in Ohio. It's like Pennsylvania, how it is, but we don't have Philadelphia. We have Cleveland. So
no, because it looks like Sherrod Brown's going to lose.
Yeah.
And look,
and that's a damn shame. I mean, he is one of the best that we've ever had, and I hate that. But here's the thing, I don't know what it's going to turn out yet because the votes are still there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's not looking good.
And as you've said, this is a true working class hero. I mean, this is a guy who's in there fighting every day, and you've again gone to this, well, this extreme right wing politician who has said some really, really nasty things about women, and somehow going to walk away with the majority of the votes, or enough to win.
Because they don't look at the same media as we do.
Yeah.
We have to reach them.
Any hope?
Yeah, of course. I mean, here's the thing. Progress in history is slow. It always is. If you look at anything that's ever happened that's been important or big in the world, it's been excruciatingly slow. So yeah, I got hope. We've made so much progress in the last 8 years. I still have a lot. I'm nervous. I don't like how close this is, and I don't understand how these people do what they're doing. But yeah, even if we don't win this thing, I still have hope because progress is slow. But It always happens.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends who their hair is on fire, and I'm like, regardless, if Trump does win, that's another moment to organize. That's another moment to.
I'm telling you what, man. If Trump wins, you want to see a resistance and a blue wave. Don't even. Yeah, everybody who has their hair on fire right now for that, like, you got a lot of friends out there, and there's a lot of people that, I mean, the first time I underestimated. I didn't think that people were going to come out. I didn't. I thought Trump would win. I thought some people's heads would get hit with some baseball bats and everybody would stop. Nope. That's not what happened. I'm telling you right now, like, I have no qualms about, like, the resistance 2.0 if that ever happens, but I don't think we're there. I don't
either. I still think Harris is going to win Pennsylvania. I still think that Harris is going to win. Because we've known from the beginning, Pennsylvania is the key to all of this. Once the mail-in ballots are counted over the next couple of days, again, we will, much like 2020, we will then get the full picture of what the state does. But understand, the messaging already is, we won Pennsylvania and they're going to steal it from us by actually counting the votes. And that's what people need to be aware of. And if there's one point in this, that's it. We've seen this movie before. We know what they're going to do. It's just a matter of being aware and pointing it out when it happens.
Well, here's the thing for me on this is I was in Philly last night at Kamala's last rally, and I've never seen, and it's not about crowd size, but I've never seen like more people excited, and except Obama, and there was a huge crowd. But the thing that really got me was I was getting on the train to come down to DC today, and every person who was there, all the workers, all the, drivers, the people getting on the trains, all of it, everybody was asking, did you vote? Did you vote? And I was talking to the precinct captains, and they were saying they're projecting 90% turnout in Philadelphia. I'm not counting on Pennsylvania either.
No, I mean, that's clearly, as Pennsylvania goes, the state goes. So we will obviously see. Any advice for the next couple of days?
Be patient and have faith. I mean, that's it. I mean, the biggest thing is patience. We all knew this was coming. Everybody said, I mean, that's the thing. When you see that in the news, you don't want to believe it. It's like, it could come down to 3 or 4 days after the election. You're not going to get results. And no one really paid attention to it, but everybody's been saying that. So this is what everybody expected. So be patient.
There you go.
And we'll get through it.
There you go. David, I appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Rick.
Good stuff. Our good friend David Yankovich. I want to hear your thoughts. Were you prepared for this? Have we prepared you sufficiently? Because I've been saying this for a while. I know people say, it's going to be a blowout. But, no, this is going to be tight. And it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. And it's going to be a couple of days. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it looks like the anti-gerrymandering thing in Ohio is going to go down because, hey, where better to champion gerrymandering than in one of the most gerrymandered states in the country? And just like Ohioans want it, evidently looks like that is going to go down, as is sadly Sherrod Brown. Which out of all of this, that's the one. I mean, I think there's a guy who, true working class hero, someone who absolutely has done incredible work for people. And yeah, it is what it is. But here to share some thoughts on what we know thus far. And it's all about to change probably within 10 minutes of us getting through this. But I've asked my good friend Bob Ney to come share some thoughts, former Ohio congressman and political analyst, on just what we're seeing and, well, maybe where this is going to take us. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Rick.
So let's start with what country are you going to move to?
Yeah, former congressman and ex-analyst as a predictor. I got this one way off. I thought Sherrod Brown would, squeak it out because I had served with Sherrod. I'm from Ohio. He has had Republican crossover to vote for him. He's been a working person's candidate, a populist candidate of sorts, in the sense that, he's supported a lot of issues that people have crossed over for him many times in the past. So I thought that would happen one more time. Obviously, it didn't. The gerrymandering caught me off guard. Now, I was the subject of gerrymandering myself. They put a little thumbnail in of which my house sat there, and they cut everything else away from me. I wasn't happy about that years back. So I was a victim of gerrymandering myself. And I just thought there was no organized opposition of sorts. Wasn't outside money that I knew of pouring in. So I kind of thought, well, that issue will probably pass, and it didn't. So I called that one definitely the wrong way.
I see, because I have a friend who lives in Ohio, and I said, look, it's not gonna pass, because if you have control, if it's gerrymandered in your favor, you're never gonna give up that kind of control. So the fact that you're gonna go, we're gonna let somebody else, jigger it around so that maybe we lose the majority, never gonna happen. So I wasn't surprised by that, but like I said, Ohio, loves gerrymandering. Make it gerrymandering great again.
It is in Ohio.
But this is where you start going. I've got a lot of friends emailing me at this moment. Going, we're moving, to Denmark or someplace. I'm going, no. This is how this. It's not the end of the world. It's going to be a lot more difficult if Trump does win and Republicans have won the Senate, and there's a possibility of winning the House. There's a lot of work to then do, because that's how this game is played.
It is, and also it's an issue of performance. Which, look. There's still votes to be counted in the blue wave states. Yes, Trump's ahead in Pennsylvania. And as we speak, numbers have come in, obviously from Philly. But there could be still a possibility, but let's face it, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
We may not know officially, for a while. But you're right about the way the game's played. And I think in general, a lot of people, this is just a feeling I have watching the reaction of what's happened tonight, where Trump actually performed in some cases more than he did in 2016. It also tells me that the question asked, are you better off than 4 years ago? Even though inflation was coming down, even though, there was a lot of movement that really looked good, I think probably some people's reaction to when it skyrocketed just didn't leave their mind, even when it came down. I think that's, a little bit and a part of it.
Yeah, but you do know on January 20th, this is going to be the greatest economy ever.
Yes, I know. And because of the greatest person ever.
You know that's going to then be the message. I have taken office, and it is now anointed the greatest economy ever.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see. I mean, there's, one thing that this system has is the off-year elections, where you have a party in control. If they don't perform, then you have the off-year elections, and sometimes the opposite party will pick up some seats. But the Senate, that's a big deal for a lot of reasons. And you made a point earlier when we were talking about the cloture rule, if the filibuster cloture, whichever you want to call it, if the Republicans do away with that, then they have a true powerful majority.
And I fully expect that they will. I expect that to get all the things that they want to get through, all of the Project 2025 stuff that we've been talking about, that they have on their list. I fully expect them to put aside the filibuster.
Yes, I expect. I am happy. I can't, lie about this one. I wish somebody would have put it aside years back, because I just don't like it. Party powers shift, and then they. The opposite party, the party in the minority wants to keep it. I've watched this for years. So that's one thing. I'm glad it's going if it goes. But again, that will change the dynamics, no question about it, for the Republicans.
Now, you think it was the economy that, because, I've had a bunch of people say, how is it possible, given the last couple of weeks of Trump's rallies and campaigns and just the crazy stuff that he's been doing, how is it possible that more people have come on board? And it's an honest question. Is it that we're just not paying attention? Is it that, as you've said, they just got it in their head, the economy was better then, I don't care about the chaos, all I care about is me?
I think a couple of things. One is the economy, because when it went to its peak of inflation, people had this whole trauma of, less powerful dollar, less ability to spend, to help themselves. And even as it started to get better, I still think the aftershock is there. I think that's one thing. Second, Kamala Harris, from what I've seen tonight, underperformed in some cases from where Joe Biden was. And there's another thing. It's tough within weeks of an election to have a sitting president say, okay, I'm not running, and then here's the new person. Right. It's tough. That's a factor that in a lot of cases would have been impossible. Harris still did pretty good as a result of coming in, so late to the race. And then the other thing is the border. That's another factor is the border. At some point in time, they've got to come to terms with that. And the Biden administration, by all rights, was so slow on border action, even though I know there was a bill killed by Trump, but even by executive order. And at the end, President Biden tried to do a few executive orders, but it was a little bit too late. But I think the economy probably is the main thing. And Kamala Harris was never able to completely separate herself from Biden on that point and a couple of other points. And also, throw in, Israel and Gaza throughout an entire year's period of time, and you have that kind of perfect storm.
Yeah, no, I know a number of people who didn't vote for either candidate because of the Israel and Gaza thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you go, well, okay, but what's coming, kind of think about how that's going to affect you in the bigger term. Because as it's been explained to me, Trump isn't going to be any different.
Well, that's correct. But this is really fascinating. I saw a very emotional, well-spoken Palestinian guy who lives outside Gaza, obviously. And he, recognizes that Trump is, not going to be better for the Palestinian people, but he just couldn't get off of what Biden did the last year. And, Trump even had the endorsement of one of the Muslim leaders, Arab American leaders up in Michigan. So that issue was just all over the place. And I think that also, frankly, the prime minister of Israel, the president would ask for something and Netanyahu kind of played it around and then didn't do it time after time after time. So it was almost like prime minister of Israel was a little bit more happy if Trump would be in there.
No, look, I think the dictators of the world, the authoritarians of the world, the fascistic leaders of the world are tickled pink at the prospect of Donald Trump being back in the White House.
Yeah, that's going to be a different world stage.
So
no question.
What are the first things that they do then? I mean, we don't really know what his policy agenda is other than what was written in Project 2025. Where do you think he goes if things go the way that it appears that they may? Where do you think legislatively they go? What do they do?
I don't think they know. And I don't believe they will be able to completely take a Trump lead because, look, and you know this and I know this, when Trump was first elected in 2016, the easy hit it out of the park bill, the first bill,
infrastructure,
should have been the transportation bill.
Yep.
And it wasn't. And when he did that, I thought, wait a minute, take that honeymoon effect, get that bill, it'll build you up some goodwill. And he didn't do it. So I'm not sure there will be a thought out procedure of legislation as much as whatever comes to his mind that day.
Now, do you think this will be, as some fear, the wet dream list of the right, all the things that we saw in Project 2025? Do you think this becomes legislation that then, you see pushed through rather quickly then? I mean, because look, if you read a lot of that document, it's about a fundamental change to the way this country operates.
I mean, they'll try. I think they will try, this is my opinion, more through executive order than they will through legislation, because if the House remains tight, there's going to be a certain amount of Republicans that will not want to ascribe to 2025. Some of them won't. So the enthusiasm in the vote, most likely, at least in the House, may not be there. But that doesn't mean through executive order things can't be done, or through rules promulgated by a cabinet member in these agencies. That we forget about that. They can promulgate rules. Congress can do very little about it because Congress is dysfunctional. It always has been in fighting the executive branch on rules.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what their first moves are in the event that they do win. Now, as we've said, look, there's a chance that Harris pulls out the blue wall states.
There is.
And we won't, as you said, won't know that for a couple of days. If that happens, if that's to happen, it's got to be a big win in the mail-in ballots, especially here in Pennsylvania.
Sure. It would have to be, and almost what I'll call perfection coming out of Philly and the mail-in ballots breaking her way. Michigan, Detroit, for example, is yet to come in. So there are factors out there that by the time, this all is settled and the dust is settled, that she may get it. Now, if she does, that's going to take a whole different legislative look, because Harris as president would tend to be more organized with a program, a series of pieces of legislation that they would attempt to get through.
Right, because I was going to ask you about the other side of this. If Harris wins, and there is a chance that can happen, what legislative policies can she get through a Republican Senate? If she wins, maybe she wins the House. You've got a House to run some legislation. What gets through a Republican Senate?
Well, possibly some of the housing issues, because remember something, when you have housing, you also have powerful people involved in housing. You have people that, even hedge funds today, unfortunately, are buying up properties. You have, realtors associations, you have mortgage bankers, you have banks. So I would say some housing ideas that she has had might see light of day, because there won't be groups out there, pushing against some of that. So she might have a chance, at that. Also, a border bill. Now, I know that sounds probably far-fetched, but look, if Kamala Harris wins the White House, what better thing to do than to begin the process, out front of a border bill? I think it would be a good thing. And frankly, if she makes both sides angry, she'll probably make the American people happy.
Yeah, no, and look, there's already a bill. I mean, James Langsford had that bill, and it was one, as you've said, that everybody was upset with. So, that seemed like a reasonable way forward, and Trump killed it. So, we'll see. I mean, this is sadly, and this is where I started, sadly, we're going to get nothing to help make lives better. There's no policy that's going to help move us. It's more division. It's more gridlock. It's more chaos. Not good. Not the way to run a lemonade stand.
No, it's going to be quite chaotic, and there'll be talk, but an organized program for manufacturing, and let's face it, there wasn't a lot of movement before. Yes, there'll be tariffs, but that will turn into a huge fight too. Don't get me wrong. Yep. I hate trade bills, But approaching tariffs a certain way can be detrimental too.
So let me ask you about that, because that's a campaign promise that Trump ran on. We're going to put, broad-based tariffs on everything. And look, I'm not an anti-tariff person per se.
Right.
I think if done right, done strategically, done in the right direction, helpful, help protect domestic industries, all that stuff. But a blanket tariff across everything,
that's a problem. And I have fought trade bills my entire existence when I was in public office. I did press conferences with Bernie Sanders, Dennis Kucinich, and many Republicans. I can't stand what has happened to working people over a period of decades in this country. And I'm not shy on tariffs. And Trump put the original tariffs in. Biden kept them. That was great. That system's had a give and take. But to blanketly say everything's going to go up 100%, everything, that's not a way to approach it. It might sound like, rally around the flag and do this. It's got to be done in a better fashion. So yes, if it's done across the board, I think it will cause some economic chaos. It's got to be done in an appropriate manner, not just a broad brush.
So the most important question of all, will the sun come up tomorrow?
Oh, yes. There's two things I know. 3, 4, death, taxes, the sun will come up, and the Capitol will have much better security when the Electoral College meets.
There you go. I think depending on who wins the vote, well, we'll see. I'm not going to make that prediction then. We will then see. But Bob, as always, I appreciate the thoughts.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Good stuff. Our good friend Bob Ney. I want to hear your thoughts. Will the sun come up tomorrow? Pretty sure it will. And look, ultimately, it's about organizing the day after and start moving for an agenda to help push in the other direction if you have to. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, if you've got thoughts. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1860. That was the day that Abraham Lincoln was elected 16th President of the United States. When Lincoln came to office, the nation was deeply divided on the question of slavery. By December 20th, South Carolina had seceded from the United States. Less than a month later, Confederate soldiers fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. With those shots, it became clear the issue of slavery would be settled by a civil war. The first year of the war was not going well for the Union. In December 1861, President Lincoln sat down to pen his annual message to Congress. In 1934, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt renamed that annual message the State of the Union. The speech still goes by that name today. By all accounts, the State of the Union was very grim in 1861. 11 states had seceded and were at war with the Union. Lincoln's long message to Congress included a summary of the war as well as foreign relations. But it ended with Lincoln's thoughts about the nature of work and labor in the United States. It included some of the most famous words ever uttered by a sitting president about labor. Lincoln wrote, "Labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could have never existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration." Lincoln ended his address by noting that the war that embroiled the nation would have a profound impact, not just on the current generation fighting. He wrote that the conflict would shape the vast future of the nation. Lincoln was felled by an assassin's bullet. He did not live to see that vast future after the Civil War. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So clearly not the day everyone, at least some, were expecting. Clearly not the outcome half the country was hoping for. But ultimately, we don't know yet. There's still an outside chance that Harris pulls this off in the blue wall states, because you got to count all the votes, especially in places like Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia. That's yet to be done, as we know. So still hope, but ultimately, kind of where I want to finish today is the idea that, look, we've been in tough places before as a country. Going to get through this. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. We're going to organize around defending our policies, defending our country, defending our neighbors. We're going to have to be more creative about doing it. And ultimately, as we talked with David Yankovich earlier in the program about, it's something that I've been talking about for years on this program, that we've got to do more of reaching out to people who disagree with us. We've got to do more talking about things. Because look, the anger, and I think this is where Bob Ney was right. I think this election really was just a knee-jerk reaction to the inflation pain of the last couple of years. That reflexively, that question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago, without thinking that 4 years ago we were locked in our homes, and 4 years ago there were trucks parked near hospitals, being used as morgues. But they were able to successfully make that argument. 4 years ago you were better off. Gas was basically free. I had someone tell me that gas was $1 a gallon. I'm going back. Gas hasn't been $1 a gallon in more than 30 years. But it's this, what they've been reinforced to believe. And this is why we do have to have these conversations. We have to, I think where the failure has been, especially for on the left, is the demonization and the ostracizing. I talk to everyone, whether I agree with you or disagree with you. In fact, I like talking to people who I disagree with a whole lot more. They're a lot more interesting conversations because they're conversations. They're not opportunities to show how smart I am or how much I know, but more opportunities for people to tell me what they know. And what's interesting about that is the more that they talk, the more that the deeper they dig themselves, the more they have an opportunity to go, well, maybe that wasn't quite right. This is where I think maybe the strategy going forward in the event that Trump is put into the White House, Project 2025 is still very relevant and very real, and still something that was even unpopular on the right. So as those policies pop up, as that legislation starts working its way through, these are going to be opportunities to organize people that we've disagreed with. I've said from the beginning, I believe that Donald Trump will go after and attack labor unions. I have a lot of Republican friends who are in labor unions. They don't believe it. They don't believe it means them. They don't believe that Trump will put somebody at the head of the NLRB who will begin once again attacking workers. They don't believe it because they don't remember it the first time. It's our job. It's incumbent upon us to be the ones to go, here it is. This is what we were talking about. Will you help us stop this? That's where the organizing begins, because ultimately it's going to come down to pressuring that handful of congressmen and congresswomen who are concerned about their seats to maybe stop the bad stuff. That couple of senators that you may need to get to stop some bad legislation from getting through. That's where our work is going to be in the event that Donald Trump wins. And look, the reality is if I'm handicapping this at this moment with the information that we have now, I'm thinking the odds are pretty good in his favor, which means we wake up, we dust ourselves off, we get up off the ground, we dust ourselves off, and we move forward. And we move forward in a way to try and make the message clearer. Because what's interesting is when you talk to individuals and you share the ideas that Harris and Walz ran on, not in a red hat, blue hat fashion, but in a person-to-person fashion, they're very popular. Most people I know want some kind of safety net under their feet. They want health security. They want retirement security. They want to make sure their kids get a good education. They want to make sure the jobs that they have pay sufficient wages, and they can't be fired for no reason. They want the American dream. And I don't know that Democrats have done a good enough job of conveying that message because they haven't had the microphone. And that's a failure to build into those worlds of media that the right has dominated for far too long. It's always amazing to me that the right claims there's this liberal media out there, and you go, where? I've been looking for it. It must be riding around with that welfare queen and the small farmer who lost their farm because of the estate tax. That must be where they are. But I want to hear your thoughts. How are you going to take this? Tomorrow we may find out more. It may take a couple of days till we get the official count. I still got good hope. I still think Milwaukee hasn't fully reported. Detroit hasn't fully reported. Philly hasn't reported. And the mail-in ballots aren't fully counted. So we'll hold our judgment till then. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.